Hello and welcome to another episode of News2Gamers. I'm Leanne Rogers and unfortunately Simon is a little under the weather, so I'm afraid to say you're stuck with me this week, guys. But we have an amazing show lined up for you, so let's take a look at what's coming up. Coming up on this week's show, we'll be showing the latest trailer for Gran Turismo Sport. We'll also be sharing what you guys had to say on social media. Richard will be bringing us dispatches from his expedition in Tropico. And we'll be hearing Simon's take on newly released Homefront The Revolution. But first, here's the lowdown. Let's kick it off now with Destiny. This autumn's expansion will be called Rise of Iron, a fresh leak has revealed. Artwork obtained by Kotaku shows Iron Banner boss Lord Saladin centre stage, in a location that looks a lot like Earth's Cosmodrome War. As expected, Rise of Iron contains a new raid and will weigh in around the same size as last year's The Taken King. The expansion has been developed as a late replacement for a full-blown Destiny sequel. Destiny 2 was delayed earlier this year when Bungie boss Harold Ryan was replaced. And this new report states the sequel was rebooted at the same time Bungie staff was reshuffled. And the Taken King architect Luke Smith now placed at the helm. Rise of Iron is set to launch this September and we'll see our first official glimpse of it at E3 next month, likely as a part of Sony's press conference. Grand Theft Auto 5 and Red Dead Redemption developer Rockstar Games is hard at work on new games which will be announced soon. Parent company Take-Two Interactive announced the tease came as part of the company's latest earnings report, and with E3 right around the corner, the timing is particularly interesting. After telling fans to expect Rockstar Games announcing exciting future projects soon, Take-Two Interactive has also confirmed when these games might be released. And it's not for a while. The earliest a new Rockstar title might be released is April 2017. Though of course, the games may be announced sooner. Rockstar Games is of course hard at work on some exciting future projects that will be revealed soon, Take-Two said. Recently, Zelnick teased that the company had big plans for E3 2016. In April this year, what was believed to be the map for Red Dead Redemption 2 leaked, suggesting the game was possibly a prequel to the 2010 original. News2Gamers are all over the latest news from Rockstar Games and we will be keeping right up to date as it all unfolds. The Witcher's Wild Hunt upcoming expansion Blood and Wine is set to be released May 31st worldwide, and it has a gorgeous new trailer with incredible new worlds, beasts to slay, maidens to save and areas to explore. Here is the announcement trailer, it's so good.
When I was a lad, my old Nan would tell me stories of magical places. Tales of far-off lands with golden-haired maidens and oath-sworn knights. Lands rich with drink and lavish feasts. I never believed those stories until I found Tucson. This is a land left untouched by the tides of war, easily rivaling Velen or Ardskellig in size. In Tucson, simple folk live simple lives. They work the fields, peddle their goods, and tend to the vineyards, making the finest wines this side of the Ponta. It's a land ripe with opportunity, full of wild beasts to slay, maidens to defend, and long-lost treasures just begging to be found. Here a man never pangs with hunger, never wants for company, and never goes anywhere without a drink in his hand. But with all this debauchery and drink, you might wonder what brought the white wolf to this land of sheep. Well, I think it's time I told you a story. A beast stalks us, hunts us in the night, and only the Witcher can shake us from this nightmare.
So, Resident Evil 7, we all know it's happening and we know it will have a full reveal at this year's E3. This is according to Japanese analyst Serkan Koto. Writing on Twitter, he also revealed that the game will return to the franchise's horror roots and that Capcom has hired designer Jordan Amaro to work on it. He's no stranger to the big name franchises, as he also worked on 2015's Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. The tweet read, about Resident Evil 7, yes, it's in development. The entire game will go back to Resident Evil's horror roots and essentially be a clean slate. 2, they will show it at E3. The Resident Evil 7 team hired Jordan Morrow, a designer who previously worked on Metal Gear Solid 5 and PT at Kojima Productions. The existence of Resident Evil 7 would come as little surprise. In October last year, veteran producer Masachika Kawata told fans to stay tuned for news about the game. With its successful Kickstarter campaign wrapping up last June, things have been quiet on the ukulele front for almost a year. Developer Playtonic Games is now finally ready to show off more of its Banjo-Kazooie spiritual successor, beginning today with some new images and details. The game shall feature a toy box with plenty of cool props to play with, as well as shiny collectibles and secrets to discover. In true Banjo fashion, the buddy duo will purchase and unlock moves from the Serpent Salesman Trouser, which they can choose to do in virtually any order that the player decides, the developer said. Playtonic went on to say that we'll learn much more about the game in the coming weeks. Ukulele will also be on display at E3. And finally, Simon mentioned it on last week's show, but here is the brand new gameplay trailer for Gran Turismo Sport. Represent and compete for your home country or favourite car manufacturer through multiple race classes, including GT3, Prototype Rally and more. It looks stunning and I know you guys can't wait for it. It's due to release November the 18th. Here's the new gameplay trailer. Check it out. look at those graphics. I can't wait to build my own Pigmobile like this masterpiece I made on GTA. Right, now here's the part of the show which I normally bring to you, so let's head over to someone who isn't me to hear what you lot have been saying on social media.
Thanks, Leanne. Hello all, and today you have yours truly on social media. This week we ran a poll on Twitter. Rockstar are hard at work on new projects, and we wanted to know what you thought it was. 35% of you think it's Red Dead 2, although 24% think it's Agent. Look, if it's Agent, I will totally lose my mind. Talking of polls, we asked what franchise would you like to see, and 37% of you said LA Noire. Really? I was bored silly with LA Noire. Come on, guys. So, while Simon is away with man flu, I know, I want to answer something that's been bugging me to hell, and also bugging Nicole Lou, who, Nicole on Facebook says, "What's with the fingers and swaying the hands from side to side? Both presenters, it's driving me potty. My eyes are following your hands, so strange." Well, Nicole, Simon and Leanne like to glue their fingers together. So that's it, solved. They do it because they don't know what to do with their hands. I promise you, throughout this whole segment, I will not do this. Look, even I can't do it. Moving on. I wanted to see what the Twitter sphere thought of Uncharted 4 and Doom, so here we have Jack Packard. #Doom is the first game in a long time that I considered required playing. Smooth, fast, violent and fun. Bruce Straley, I think that's how you say it, in '93 I owned a video game company that almost went under because we couldn't stop playing deathmatch in #Doom. Fair enough, I say. I'd say that Doom's onto a bit of a winner here, to be fair. I've been playing it non-stop and it's an absolute storming game. Make sure you get it. Uncharted 4, what you been saying? Cade Peterson, I'm finally home long enough to get into #Uncharted 4. Gonna play it all day long. I think that's what it said. Wendy, great name. I can't stop snapping pictures in #Uncharted 4. Yeah, me too. Hopefully then, I've done Simon and Leanne proud in this little segment. If you guys want to get in touch with us, head over to our Facebook and Twitter, and don't forget to give us a cheeky subscribe on YouTube. I will be watching. You may see yours truly on News2Game Extra, so make sure you tune in. I've been Neil. See you soon, guys.
Welcome back to News2Gamers. Still to come, we have Simon's review of Homefront the Revolution. It has been received pretty poorly by most critics out there, so I wonder if Simon has a similar take on it. But first, let's head over to our dear leader, Richard, for this week's Respawn.
Now last week it was put to viewers what Respawn they like to see this week, but I'm sorry to say this ain't a democracy. Tropico is a game I've spent an inexcusable amount of hours of my one and only finite existence on this planet playing. One reason for this is because a few years back my graphics card died and I was only able to play games without any of those fancy 3D graphics the kids can't seem to do without nowadays. However, the main reason is because I am a closet megalomaniacal dictator at heart with an undying lust for power. And perhaps fortunately for the rest of you, reality hasn't granted me much of an opportunity to establish my Reich, so I'm forced to sublimate such urges to the digital realm. Tropico sees you play as your tailor-made El Presidente, a new leader of an as of yet unestablished banana republic during the Cold War era, aptly titled Tropico. Like most games of this ilk, the goal is to stay in power by any means necessary. You start the game from humble beginnings, a few small farms, dilapidated shacks scattered along the beaches, and of course a giant presidential palace. You begin by building the foundations of your micronation. Admittedly, the construction element of the game is fairly rudimentary. Every building of each type looks exactly the same, and the only real way in which you can throw in some variety is by rotating them when the game permits it. But ultimately, upon expanding so far, you tend to find that your region looks a bit rubbish. Now, Simon took a look at what I've written so far and asked me to lighten it up a bit, talk about the more colourful and pretty stuff, like the sunny beaches and the palm trees. So, if you look here, there are some sunny beaches and some palm trees. How exciting. I see what you're saying though, the game isn't supposed to be heavy. The game is funny and provides a humorous framing of the era, and the gameplay itself can be fairly relaxed and transient. But there is also a fairly acute political and economic strategy buried underneath this sugary coating. Various competing ideological factions exist in the game which either challenge or uphold your power depending upon what sort of leader you choose to be. This creates an interesting challenge because if you pander to and propagate the beliefs of one faction and then realise their opposing faction may have had a fair point about the wholesale distribution of wealth being an unsustainable economic model all along, then you're going to have a difficult time finding anyone to support you after you've purged them out of all existence. But you know, at least the purging itself was fun. You also have to resource manage fairly intensively to ensure mass famine doesn't ensue because, unfortunately, starving denizens may not be quite so understanding of your grand vision that their lives must be vanquished for the greater good, and you may end up with a cheeky little insurrection on your hands. I'm not really sure whether or not to recommend Tropico 1. I haven't played any of the sequels, so if they're basically the original game improved with better graphics and more options, then there's no real reason not to play those instead, I suppose. Tropico doesn't appear to be an incredibly influential game, correct me if I'm wrong, but there aren't many other games of its type which grant you the ability to micromanage small societies in such a way. If you could recommend me any decent ones, well, stick your answers on a postcard. But all in all, it's a resounding classic. Anyway, this has been Richard Gullick for Respawn. Back over to you, Leanne, my little cream cake.
Aw, thanks, Rich. And I'll be honest, I had no idea that was what Tropico was about. When I saw it on the shelves, I thought it was a kid's game. Boy, how I was wrong. So now, the moment we've all been waiting for, here is Simon's review of the long-awaited and hopefully not too underwhelming Homefront: The Revolution.
On the one hand, I had high hopes for Homefront: Revolution, an open-world first-person shooter set in 2029 with a potentially gripping era that sees you take control of a new young recruit who is willing to risk his life in order to release his country from the firm grip of the Korean Revolution. Built around a huge Philadelphian backdrop, with high-powered weapons, incredibly advanced and fully controllable technology, alongside a plethora of vehicles and so much more. It sounded like it could be really promising with a mix of variants, but if it was put together in the right way, it could be a blockbuster. However, unfortunately for the guys over at Dambuster Studios, this has been thrown together and not in any particular order. The dismay and dread that has surrounded Homefront: The Revolution's development is well known. It has had a dreaded few years that includes being passed between two different publishers, changing its gameplay formula late in development stages, then the title finally made its way towards the finish line after even more setbacks. So here's the lowdown. Some very unpleasant, high-tech North Koreans have occupied a very poverty-stricken USA. You take control of Ethan Brady, who is a new recruit for the Resistance, and he's willing to do anything it takes to win his country back. But Dambuster have attempted to give a little more subtlety and intensity. The whole Call of Duty-esque linear level design has been thrown out. Instead comes a game set across a vast Philadelphia with the city torn into various discrete zones. Each zone hosts a range of different missions and objectives which you can find by unlocking Resistance safe houses or hacking into North Korea transponders. If you think that sounds a bit like Assassin's Creed or Far Cry, then you're right. However, you aren't able to roam around as willingly as you may have expected. The map is broken up into 8 main districts and partitioned off until you lock that area, which will require you to patiently wait through a lengthy loading screen to access. Other than scouting for crafting resources and ammunition, I felt a little incentive to swerve off the main path as we were very little to collect and reward for your exploratory efforts. Sadly, this appealing setup and enticing atmosphere isn't done justice, unfortunately by its very choppy narrative, which seems to be packed with cliches and half-baked characters. The problems begin with the game's protagonist, who never mumbles a single word and has very little in the way of backstory. Several of the other characters flop in, making some sort of impression in a similar way to Watch Dogs. You'll find yourself struggling to remember their names. The underlying plot of an extravagant rescue also does very little to get the blood pumping with excitement, as it's brimming with a massive amount of certain twists and turns that will leave you with a deep sigh and a rolling of your eyes. Each zone gives the game a unique atmosphere. For example, in the red zone you play a more conventional shooter, making sure you go all out to complete objectives while tackling the enemy and side missions along the way. In the yellow zones you work more undercover. You might kill a prison officer in order for you to release some prisoners, or blow up an armoured car. Don't get me wrong, in some ways there is variety there, which is the game's biggest positive comes in. The weapons are all too familiar, and they lack any form of punch and feel unreliable. Movement is slow and feels heavy. The enemy AI are tedious as well as dull. It's some platforming aspects, but the jumping moves never quite seem to work in a way that the game wants them to, especially when under pressure. It's meant to be slick, smooth and cinematic, Despite the visuals actually looking pretty good in some parts, quite spectacular, the frame rate on PS4 drops more than water gushing from Niagara Falls, and you'll spot some shocking glitches everywhere. This will include enemies trying to walk through sceneries, random floating objects, and your protagonist getting stuck in chunks of rubble. However, Homefront Revolution does have one thing going for it, and that's its co-op resistance mode. You and 3 friends can engage in one of 6 missions against your foe, taking up the challenging task of defending your facilities or infiltrating theirs. Don't go heading into this as you would Destiny or The Division, but scrapping with the KPA is a lot more enjoyable than going solo, to be honest. It also gets annoying that you have to wait for a revive when downed and can't respawn. Homefront Revolution has ambition, creativity, and a plethora of solid ideas, but it's ruined by the clumsy implementation. I just can't see past the lifeless gunplay, helpless movement, and woeful AI. Sadly, for all its desire and aspiration, there's simply not enough here worth fighting for.
So that's it for News2Gamers this week. Make sure you tune in next week where hopefully our resident Simon Hill will be back to bring you all the hype surrounding this year's E3 conference in sunny LA. Rich will be back for another cheeky respawn. Keep your suggestions flowing on Twitter or Facebook if there is anything you would like to see. And don't forget to head over to our YouTube channel and subscribe for all the latest updates from the centre of the universe for everything gaming. Keep it locked.